Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
for all.
liberty and justice for all.
That was awesome.
Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I make a motion, we adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Sorry. Councilmember Hatley?
Yes.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Councilmember Draper?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thompson?
Yeah.
Mayor Reynolds?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, moving on to the announcement of the coveted Sam Norris Award.
Mr. Mayor, I have the winner in my hand. I'm going to deliver it to you. If you would like to read it, or if you'd like me to give it to someone else, it's up to you. It's your discretion. Normally, the mayor announces this.
I'd like to read it, please.
For anyone watching, this is not the normal procedure for this. We are doing this because of the COVID-19 and not being able to gather in groups larger than 10. So what we are going to do is announce it today, and at a later date, we will have a formal presentation of the award when we're allowed to all come together again and truly celebrate this person.
Okay, in 2002, the City Council approved the Samuel J. Norris Award for Excellence, annual award for significant lifetime achievements toward improving the quality of life in the city of Oroville. Samuel, or Sam Norris, was a civil engineer who arrived in Oroville in 1903 with his wife and 3 children. He served in private and official capacities, including preparing a report that led to the construction of the Western Pacific Railroad. With a 1% grade through the Feather River Canyon, doing most of the rail connection studies while working incognito. He served as city engineer from 1911 until his retirement in 1952. His first assignments were paving specifications for the business district and the plans for the city's stormwater system. Each year, we award a recipient that exemplifies the true meaning of community and dedicates themselves to the betterment of Oroville. Due to the COVID-19 restrictions, we are unable to have an award ceremony at this time. Therefore, we would like to announce the winner of this year's award at this time and hold a proper award ceremony at a later date once the COVID-19 restrictions have relaxed. This year's awardee is Lori Souza. Thank you, Lori, for your dedication to our community. We look forward to having an official presentation in the coming months.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations, Lori. Lori is unaware that she has won this award. This is the first announcement of it. I think this is the first time a lot of people have heard that. I'd like to ask the mayor, with his permission, that if the person that nominated Lori would be willing, would they call her and notify her?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hatley.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
And congratulations, Lori.
Congratulations, Lori.
Congratulations, Lori.
Busy lady. Moving on to regular business. We have one item on regular business, budget revenue projections for fiscal year 2021, COVID-19 impacts on budget for fiscal year 2021.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council, or morning. We're not to noon yet. Ruth Duncan has been working on this, our finance director, very diligently for several weeks. We've been trying to pull together what is our best estimate of what our revenues are going to be next year in light of the fact that businesses have been shut down because of the stay-at-home order and various other issues that have occurred in our economy over the last 6 weeks. So what Ruth is going to present to you today is a best known revenue situation at this point. What I mean by that is that it's the best information that we have, but it is also utilizing the most conservative budgeting model possible out there right now, because we do not want to be overly optimistic and then miss that mark and put the council in a very awkward financial situation as it leads to the end of next fiscal year. I've forwarded you a couple documents. I will be handing one out here in just a moment to the council that's present. Councilperson Goodson and Draper, I have emailed you the documents that we were talking about earlier along with this document. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Ms. Duncan, and she will explain all of this to you.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is our budget update for the next fiscal year, and also we'll talk about the current fiscal year. As you all know, we're facing some really significant budget uncertainties. If you take away one thing from this, understand that we're facing uncertainties right now. So let's get into it. Due to the unprecedented situation caused by a global pandemic, the city is experiencing budget uncertainty. Because the governor announced allowance for small businesses to delay their sales tax disbursements, we're really expecting a decline in this current fiscal year in our revenues, but I'll get into that more. After we get done with the presentation, I do actually have a revenue summary for you. All of the pandemic shock has abruptly halted all of our normal social and economic activities. As you all know, many of our businesses are closed. Some of our businesses are actually busier. It's just really hard to predict what's going to happen in the coming months. So estimating all these impacts are going to be a challenge for all of us. We're doing the best we can. We don't know how long it's going to last, and we don't know if it's going to touch off a long-term recession. We've been talking about recession for many years now because the cycle, it was there and it never came. But this might actually touch it off. I'm not sure. Nobody knows for sure. So all we can do now is intensify our efforts towards preserving our cash flow. Our current goals are to continue to provide essential services and preserve our financial sustainability. The immediate financial impacts for this year are only going to be for probably half of March through June. Sales tax, transient occupancy tax are going to be the hardest hit. Our gas tax reductions are also expected. We have other revenues that we expect a decline in. We don't know how bad those are going to be, but mostly just because they're going to be a higher risk of collecting on accounts because we don't know how people are going to be doing with their personal economic status. So we're expecting a dip in pretty much everything.
Could I ask a question?
Councilman Hatley.
Could I ask a question?
Oh, absolutely.
On the gas tax, I know that, when you look at what the casinos are selling gas for compared to our local downtown business, they just can't compete with that. And so we're really taking a big hit on that. Do you know about, or could you kind of give me a guess about how much that's impacted us?
I cannot. I looked all over everywhere, every resource I could yesterday because I wanted to try to nail down this one, and I couldn't find any kind of projections. I know that the state and the whole, or the allocation to the county is going to be maybe $1.2 million less than we expected. So that's something that we're going to have to watch. So for our budget, I just put it down 30% because I had no other best guess. So I just guessed down 30%. It could be more, especially with people not traveling as much and not needing as much gas. So that one could be a lot worse than 30%. But for this budget, I put 30%. As I get more data, I will definitely update the council, update the budget, and we pretty much are feeling like this budget's going to be pretty fluid this year. We're going to be, making estimates on all the data that we get as we get it.
Councilman Hatley,
Okay.
on the gas tax, it is actually, I don't think we're going to experience any big change in that because the COVID impact really has no impact on the gas tax as far as the casino the tribal land versus our regular gas stations. I think that will be comparable and similar. Where I think we'll see the difference is that gas tax is based upon the number of gallons sold. And with people not traveling, not using, consuming enough, I think that's where we're going to really see our impact. That's how we came to the 30% reduction, is the lack of gallons sold. But I do understand what you're saying. There is a huge difference in price. I was told as late as yesterday, and I haven't went to verify this, but I guess regular gas is $1.39 a gallon at one of the stations. I haven't seen that in 20 years.
Right, and that's what I was curious, because some of the time you could see at least some activity in these local gas stations around in the city, and now you drive by and there's nobody there, but you drive out by the casino just to look, and they've got lines, because I mean they're selling it for $1.89 or whatever they're selling it for, $2.09, and so you know they just can't compete. So what little we were getting.
Sure. No, you're going to see the reduction in that, and I think especially as the economy continues to constrict and dollars become tighter for families, you're going to see them going to the most economical place to buy it, and if that means 2 miles down the road, then they're going to be headed 2 miles down the road.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be happy to update you as we get some estimates from the state.
That's okay.
For
I
the
was
for
just
the
kinda curious
purposes
if
of
you
this
knew.
budget, we just did 30%.
Okay, thank you.
So sales tax being our largest revenue source and the most impacted by this, this is just information that most everybody knows already. The governor introduced a program to delay or defer sales tax liabilities. And so we expect to not, we really don't know how people are going to take this. I think I've heard a lot of business say, well, we're just going to pay it. We don't want to get behind. We're going to pay it. And I think there's going to be quite a few smaller ones that take advantage of this deferral. So we're just going to have to wait and see.
If I could jump in there too, Ruth, just real quick, so we understand what this means. The governor did forego that for businesses that sales each year are less than $5 million. Now, what that means to a city the size of Oroville is there are very few businesses in the city of Oroville that actually qualify for this, because when you talk about like an O'Reilly's or an AutoZone or something like that, it's not what the AutoZone in Oroville does, it's what the AutoZone in the state of California does. So if they have annual sales of more than $5 million, they're not eligible to withhold their sales tax. The ones that it's really going to impact are our local mom and pops. They're going to be the ones that, if they need that loan to float them through, that this will be available. So just keep that in perspective. Most of the businesses in Oroville that pay sales tax are going to not necessarily be eligible for this, but there are going to be a lot of little ones that are.
So the estimate is about $3 billion for the state for the next fiscal year. I saw an email this morning that said $7 billion for the next 2 years. So the true impact is dependent on unknown variables, which make it really hard to project, but I wanted to give some background. The sales tax revenue for the city 2 years ago was 31%. And then last year it jumped to about 34% because we had 1/4 of the district tax. Right now it's roughly 40 to 40% of our budget, and maybe even closer to 50 because our district tax was outperforming our budget estimates. So it is very significant revenue source to the city. And it's going to continue to have a significant effect on our budget. So prior to the pandemic, I was letting you know that we only budgeted about $4.2 million in the district tax, and it was projected on the course that it was taking, it was projected to make about $6.2 million. So it was going to overperform our budget estimate by a lot. So a reduction in that, I'm actually predicting that we are still going to exceed our budget projection, even though we're going to take a big hit in the district tax. So I wanted to let you know, too, that we are working with sales tax consultants. They're letting us know what's going on in our region, and we'll continue to take their advice and incorporate their data while we're forecasting and projecting. So what we did is we took a systematic approach when we looked at our sales tax, and collectively we have different categories, and these are the major categories. Like within these categories, there's subcategories. So in general, Retail, there's apparel stores, department stores, there's all kinds of different stores which all have a different percentage of impact or decline that we were estimating. So overall, we were told that's confidential information. So overall, general retail, we're expecting a 48% decline. Food products, 28% decline. Transportation, 58% decline. Transportation includes our auto sales, new and used, and our service stations. And construction, a 40% decline, and all others, 28. So we took all of those percentages and we incorporated it into our sales tax projections for the rest of this year and all of next year. The next type of tax that we're going to see a decline in is our transient occupancy tax, or our TOT tax. It's approximately 5% of our budget, and just talking with a couple hotels, they're estimated down only 30% reduction, which I thought would have been more, maybe 50%, but they're still seeing some activity. So we'll continue to monitor that. Again, we don't know how long this is going to last, so trying to make any kind of educated estimate is difficult. So our next...
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
You were just talking about the hotels and motels. You thought they would be down
Yeah.
significantly?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I believe it's the county that's housing the homeless in them is why they're full.
Oh,
I believe that's some of the housing that's going on is, I think it's called Project Door Key or Room Key that the state is, and there's a couple of motels in town that certainly are that. I think why you're seeing a lot of them still full inside of the city is because both of the tribes have closed their casinos on the reservations, so I think there's no housing available there, so I think the people that would traditionally have been there have been pushed into town.
so we have other revenues that aren't as significant on our budget, but we're going to expect declines in all of them. We have property tax, utility user tax, business licenses. We don't know if those are going to become harder to collect. We don't know what's going to go on with building permit fees, and we're just going to have to continuously monitor and see if there's going to be any upward trend, or is this going to be a long-term recession. Gas tax we talked about already, but we're going to continue to watch that. So what we're going to do in the meantime is going to estimate up, estimate down as needed. Staff and council are going to work together to protect the financial sustainability of the city. We're going to continuously monitor the situation with CalPERS. That's another big one that we're not really sure where that's going. They are suffering a negative return of 4% as of now. They expect that to carry through the end of the year, which will affect our future payments quite substantially. So some actions that we've talked about are temporarily holding off on new hires. We're reviewing our service levels. We're applying for all eligible federal, state, county financial assistant that is available for this. We're going to review our labor contracts for savings. We're freezing all non-essential projects from the general fund. We have several other funding sources that haven't been utilized as much, and we're going to go ahead and finish those projects. We're going to revise revenue forecasts based on evolving knowledge from experts. For months to come, this is going to be an ongoing situation for us. So the state is already saying their budget is going to be the worst in decades. So already thousands of state and local government workers have been furloughed or laid off. Falling revenues and soaring demand can lead to budget shortfalls of up to 40%. Revenue in California cities will decline $6.7 billion over the next 2 years, and mainly due to drop-off in sales and hotel taxes. That's according to the League of California Cities estimate. They did a survey earlier this month, and all the cities sent in their data, so that's where this estimate is coming from. There's not a clear measure where we're going to bottom out, but the first few weeks of unprecedented stopping of state and local economies has really hit us hard. So now I'm going to go over to our revenue projections, and we'll just go through that real quick.
If we could just talk about the first
sure.
bullet point up here on this, where it says already thousands of state and local government workers have been furloughed or laid off. This is unfortunately a discussion that this council is probably going to have if we can't achieve the necessary concessions from our labor groups. What our initial thoughts are rolling layoffs, or I'm sorry, rolling furloughs, to ensure that we remain sustainable. So we are not headed into the layoff area yet, as we can tell with the projections that we have. But these are very speculative projections, and we are going to continue to work with our labor groups. If we can't achieve what we need, then we are going to have that difficult conversation with the council. Just so you're aware, to start wrapping your minds around that could be on the horizon.
So for purposes of this meeting, I put both the sales taxes together side by side. That's not how they're presented in the budget, because we're accounting for the district tax separately, and we're budgeting the expenditure separately, but I wanted you to see everything together. So our sales tax, regular sales tax, is the top line, and you can see the budget of over $5 million for this current fiscal year, and we're projected to receive less, and then even less in 2021. That's our preliminary estimate. But for the state and use tax 1%, it's telling a different story. We only budgeted $4.2 million, and even with the declines, we're gonna overachieve on that one. And it's estimated about $5.1 million, but we were expected to get about $6.2 million. So there's $1 million loss right there. I would say in both of them, if you want to take a general loss, it would be $2 million or $1 million in each, so $2 million total for the rest of this current fiscal year. And then, oh, sure.
Just a question on the budget and actual. Is the budget, is that the, I'm not sure exactly how to ask this question. Between the budget and actual, are those side by side year to dates, or is one like projected at a certain point and one where we are right now to get to that point?
The projected column, the third column, is through the end of the year. So it's not year to date this year. It's projecting through the end of the fiscal year 1920.
Gotcha. So the first column is
That's
where we are right now.
That's
a prior
actual.
fiscal year.
Okay.
That's actual for 18-19.
Yeah, that's where we are. That's where we landed. That's been audited, and that year is done.
Gotcha.
So then we go to 1920, and that's what we budgeted.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is where we think we're going to be at the end of this year. It's not a year-to-date amount. That's a good question. It is projected through the end of the year. And then the preliminary is applying all of those declines to those numbers. I talked to the county, going to the third line, property tax. I talked to the county. They're not expecting any declines in property tax, because there is a small increase every year. If there are people harder to collect property tax, I think it's going to even out. So not really much change to property tax. Utility user tax, we definitely expect to see accounts harder to collect. So we did budget for a small decline there. Franchise fees, we budgeted a small decline there. Transient occupancy tax, we did 30%. And those are all of our major revenues. If you could slide down a little bit, Jackie. Not sure, I'm sure our building department could speak to what it's looking like in the building department as far as permit fees for the rest of this year and next year, but we just budgeted for a decline since everything else is, but we'll try to get a better estimate if we can. Other revenues, just small declines across the board. I will say that the operating transfers in is going to stay about the same as a small decline, but our cost allocation is in there, and that was increased this year, so that one's going to stay strong. And charges for services, we did another decline. So basically, we just kind of applied whatever best guess we could to the declines we thought we would have for this year, which is landing us, if you can go down to the bottom,
Could I just jump in there just real quick,
Sure.
Ruth? The one thing that you're seeing, the question you're probably going to have is how do we go from 4 million to 1.9 million? The big difference is in other revenues. There was a one-time $2 million grant of money from the state that came in for the impacts of the campfire on the city. That was a one-time occurring thing. If you look traditionally, we're just about in line with where we would normally be, showing a decrease. This year was an anomaly where we had the extra $2 million. We will not be getting that next year.
Yeah, as Bill said, if you look at the bottom line for total general fund revenues, we had 21 million projected for this year. I took the 2 million out just so we could see like a baseline budget to compare to the next year, and it looks like an overall 15% decline. And if the council's okay with the way we've made these assumptions, then we'll go ahead with the preliminary budget based on these estimates. If more time comes before we actually bring the preliminary budget to council and more data becomes available, I'll update it. I don't know if you would rather do some kind of range where we just do a 30% decline or anyway, it's landing at 15%. If everybody's okay with this is how we're going to prepare our next budget.
Is there anyone who would like to speak on this?
Yeah, I'd like to. Go ahead.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and I think this is a great way to do our first run at the budget. One question, and it may not be able to answer today. I know there was a bailout in property taxes for the county related to the campfire and the loss of those property tax revenue streams. I'd like to know how many years does that last for the county, and does the county have any projections on when they lose that amount that's being supplied by the state? What would be the effect to service levels? And that's my concern to us, is the county going to experience a service level reduction based on losing the loss of the property tax from the Paradise event?
When I had that conversation with the county, they didn't say that they expected any kind of service level loss. They did say that, well, I did know that the backfill was for 3 years. And so the first year, the backfill, the city received $121,000 to make us whole. And I was told we are not going to get years 2 and 3 because it wasn't part of the calculation that they're making. And I'll be happy to forward the email that I got when I asked that exact question.
So that's an unknown that we don't know about in the future, next 2-3 years out. Will the county be whole based upon the
They
property tax
expect
revenue?
it to be, because I asked specifically about declines and
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Specifically for the city, we will not be whole because of that, because of the backfill. However, I believe that there was another component of the property tax that brought us up to the same level, but
Yes.
it's not backfill dollars from campfire. It's another
Yes, I was
source that
told
they have for
to
money.
not
So
expect any decline.
Thank you.
Was there someone else?
Councilwoman Goodson? has a
Councilmember
question.
Goodson? Councilmember Goodson,
Yes,
are
thank
you ready?
you.
Thank you.
I wanted a clarification on its column H in regards to the $2,125,079.
Yes.
Is it my understanding that the 2 million was from the campfire fund? And even if so, that's under projected. I can't see what that column is because it's the headliner has been eliminated there, but there's a significant drop to 79,360. And then I'm also looking at it's, I believe the first D column is actual 992,000, projected 520. I was just wondering, why is there such a huge disparity down to $79,000, even if in column H, 2 million was one-time monies?
That's an easy answer for me to answer. That column
Please.
catches all of our one-time revenues. So if you see in 1819 would be column D, that would be including some one-time revenues that we had. I'll be happy to provide you the list. I'm sorry I didn't include it in this slide. But basically that's our one-time revenue column.
And I think what you'll see in there, Councilperson Goodson, is that 79,000 is our estimate. At the actual, when it closes, that'll be a much different number, because any one-time dollars that come in go into that fund.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ruth and Bill.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I just wanted to offer an observation with the real estate market. The real estate market in Oroville still is hot. And so that's really good news. And I think, when people are considering where they want to live, Oroville is the place. And we're a rural community. When you think about pandemics and people's response to that, I think Oroville is going to become very popular in the months and in the next year as a place for people to think about retiring to, coming to, raising their families in, because we're kind of, and I think the numbers bear this out, kind of hedged up a bit when it comes to things like pandemics, because we have natural social distancing by virtue of our community, and I know that the title company is very, very busy. So that I think there's, if there's a silver lining in all of this, I think that just looking at business, thinking and considering relocating to Oroville, I think there's some real possibilities here. So I mean, in the midst of kind of a dark moment, I think that with sometimes negative situations also comes opportunities and new opportunities. And so for our community, I think we have. The opportunity is there, and I don't think it's all dark and dreary. And so I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, as I look at how people are responding. People are buying real estate in Oroville, and I don't know all of what that means, but it means something.
Well, I think as we move forward on this, if we're hearing from the council that this approach is one that you believe would be adequate, we'll begin to further structure our budget. We will adopt most likely a model utilizing the 18-19 budget because it's fairly close. It looks like it's about $400,000 off from where our revenues were then as to what they are now. So we'll build expenditures based around that so that we meet that model. I would remind the council to be prepared for over the next year that we are going to be doing a lot of talking about this. And as we get additional new revenue projections or expenditures, you're going to have to spend a lot of time considering these things and providing us direction on this, because no one has ever experienced this type of a shut off of the economy before. So everything is speculative at this point. We are working closely with our sales tax consultants to get the most conservative numbers. We are working to that side. We don't want to overestimate revenues. If anything, we want to underestimate them and give the council the ability to turn things up, not have to keep dialing it down. So we're going to give you a worst case scenario budget, and then we will work forward from there.
So are you looking for direction to move forward with these projections?
Well, we're looking for any additional comments that any council members may have, or any questions that they may have, or something that they would like to see different, or how would they would like us to move forward.
Like you said, it's all speculation, so that's what we're looking at. I think it's a wait and see thing for a little while. From where I'm sitting, there's 7 seats here, though, if someone wants to speak. Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. Since this stay-at-home order has been, and people have been working from home, I guess this would be a question for the chief, but have we seen our crime rate go down, stay the same, go up? And the reason I'm asking this is because I'm seeing in this memo that was handed out to us, where we were going to freeze all positions. I just want to make sure that, because if people start transitioning back into work, if the number is down, that's because people are home and some yahoo's not going to break in your house while you're home, but hopefully. But as you go back to work, and now I'm wondering if we're going to see that go back up, or exactly where we're at. And my concern is if we're going to have adequate staff, or did we get up to staff before all this hit? As far as
I believe that the chief has done quite a bit of hiring in public safety. I believe our fire personnel were up to what the council had allotted in the budget, and I believe police we have a couple individuals in the academy now that will be coming out. We haven't had a lot of turnover in those departments, so I believe that we're going to be adequately staffed. We're not suggesting that we do anything right now other than just hit the pause button until we see what happens. And if we do see an escalation in that, then we'll have to readjust our organization to put more resources toward that issue if it is a public safety issue.
Well, I was just curious. I knew that we did have some people in the academy. I just didn't know if they were out yet or not.
No, they're.
And are they still on board, or are they not?
We'd have to check with the chief on. I'm 99% sure that they're still on board and they're still attending the academy and are still going to be here shortly. But the chief would have the most up-to-date information on that.
There's currently 2 employees that are in the police academy. They're scheduled to graduate on June 5th. They're both still employed by the city of Oroville, and they should be coming to us upon graduation on June 5th.
Okay. And have you seen
There's a decrease in our numbers since the stay at home. There's a decrease there's a very large decrease in our proactivity that's been directed by myself, but there's also a decrease in just calls for service alone.
Okay.
During that, I would say overall, there's a slight decrease.
Chief, locally, have you noticed a incline in child abuse and domestic violence?
I haven't been told of that. I haven't actually specifically ran the numbers. I've heard of this, but I haven't checked our local to see if there's an increase. But I have heard more so on a broad spectrum of other areas that there is.
Mayor Reynolds, I actually listened to a web conference on that, which the council is all invited to. It's on Friday mornings at 7:30 to 8 o'clock. It's put on by the county. It's a no question type of an event where the county just kind of reports out what's going on. One of those questions was exactly that. Has there been an increase in reports of child abuse? The answer to that is no. It's at about the same level that it was, and they went over who is doing the reporting. What has switched is that since there isn't school in session right now and there's a lot of homeschool going on, reports from the schools have significantly dropped off to being the lowest reporting agency, which makes sense because the kids aren't at school. And law enforcement is now the highest reporting agency.
The same for domestic violence?
They didn't report on domestic violence. This was specifically related to child abuse.
Because I know since this quarantine, my wife has let me know that I blink really loud, and
I think
I'm a little bit fearful.
over the course of my career, what you traditionally see in the winter when, and it's often referred to as a common term like cabin fever, when people are stuck inside because of rainy or inclement weather, after a while, things become a little edgy for some folks. So I would imagine that you probably have some sort of an uptick in that, but there's no direct numbers to support
Great.
that.
Is there anyone else who wishes to comment?
Good job.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. So with that, if no one has any comments, we will adjourn the meeting till, what is it, May 5th? May 5th at,
Mayor, just a second, I forgot, I had a note here, I'd like to, and this has kind of just happened, this council in the past had encouraged the Northwest Lineman College to advertise locally for housing. I received an email from NLC just a day or two ago. They're now changing their housing advertisement policy and utilizing more housing in the Chico area. And I believe this council had encouraged them to seek housing here in Oroville first. Might research that, and maybe a letter could be sent to the NLC to remind them about the encouragement of housing first here, students here in Oroville first. If you remember that discussion? So I just received the email from NLC, as I have a house that they used before in the past. That's why I got it. So we might take up that topic.
are they still housing at the Oroville Inn?
I don't know. I just received an email from NLC asking and informing me that they would also be looking at student housing in Chico.
I know 4 of them just rented a house right behind me.
Right. And I know there's a lot of people in this community that rent to the students, and I hate to see them lose that opportunity to at least be on the advertisement list.
We will inquire with them. I'm speculating, but they may be looking toward the available college housing in Chico, that the dorms and things that are vacant now as as this one-time opportunity. We'll reach out to them to find
Thank
out
you.
what that's about.
Okay, with that, we will,
Hello?
hello? Did you wish to speak?
Oh, Councilwoman Goodson, are we exploring potential agenda items for the next city council meeting on May 5th?
We certainly can.
Just for transparency and for the sake of the public who are not aware, we have received multiple letters in regards to just questions and reference towards districting. I think it would be a good idea to talk about that at the next city council meeting. Perhaps put it as an agenda item for an update.
I'm sorry, Councilperson Goodson, we will put that on closed session as to the fact that that has potential litigation surrounding it. We need to discuss it in a closed session manner.
Sounds good. All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else? With that, we're going to adjourn to Tuesday, May 5th, 2020 at 5 p.m.